I'm sat next to a very special guest, Dan Sarginson. Daniel Sarginson.
Yeah.
What is the message?
The message is that.
That is the message. What is the message? We've just been having a pretty good chat, honestly, prior to this about like transitioning from rugby to life away from rugby. What does that look like to you? Like, you were telling me a little bit about your day and how it flows. How does a day flow for you? Tell us a little bit about that, because I loved that idea, that frame of that. You move through your day how you feel is right. Do you know, depending on, if you're feeling creative, you're diving into a bit of work. Do you know, if you're feeling like you need a little more of a slow pace, that's what you're going for. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's hard to get to, because I think naturally, as humans, we have this idea that we need to be super productive and that we need to be spending every time efficiently. But sometimes, if we're not feeling up to it, we're just working against ourselves. So sometimes that stillness is the most productive thing we can do. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes that stillness, I'm not feeling it. Why would I go up and sit on my laptop and battle through something when later on in the day I know I'll get that kind of hour or 2 hours where that creativity comes through to me, and it's a perfect opportunity for me to sit down and write out some ideas. And most of the time it's around my talks and stuff, and my notes on my phone and my laptop, my girlfriend laughs at me. It's just sporadic. It's just mental. There's just notes everywhere and just ideas everywhere, and just try and build it all up, and then sit down for a couple of days and try and write out another talk or a different way of getting through to people, what works, what doesn't, you know. Just constantly trying to build things, trying to make like complex subjects quite simple and digestible for people, I think. That's
digesting your own thoughts, which is a difficult idea, and also battling that internal voice or that societal voice that you need to be on the go doing something. I love that, because I struggle with that. I struggle with that idea. But and when you're writing down things, how do you make it go from a sporadic pile of notes into the way you flow through when you're speaking? Like it comes across, but obviously that takes work. You don't just go from the idea straight into like it flowing well into a talk. So how do you get to that point?
I think, do you know what? I try to write all my talks to a younger version of me. So I genuinely try to imagine me sat in the room, and what did I need to hear? Not what was someone going to teach me, but how would someone inspire me, just to consider that maybe I don't have it all figured out. Maybe there's certain things I can change the angle in which I'm looking at things and perceive things in a different way, or what can I kind of offer to kind of inspire people just to consider a different point of view. Because for me, and I don't know, I feel like sometimes I sit alone with this, but I feel like sometimes the way I see the world is potentially a lot different to how other people are seeing it. And I don't know if other people are just kind of getting on with their lives and kind of accepting that they probably don't feel great, but, you know, they live for the weekend and other bits like that, which is fine and which is amazing. But I just try to offer maybe a different perspective of a different way of life. Like, that was the way I lived. I used to hang on in there till the weekend and then drink and drugs and try to just go hard and try to use that as my enjoyment. But I always kind of sat with that, why can I not try to enjoy every moment? Or maybe not every moment, but how can I not try to maybe, you know, some of the painful events, how can I move through that a little bit more quicker? How can I learn from that? How can I grow from that? Instead of just kind of suppressing it completely. Just kind of driven by wanting to become a better person and wanting to enjoy every moment and every interaction a little bit more. Was kind of the thing for me to kind of kick up the arse in a way, to just try and enjoy life a little bit more. I think we all have the capacity to enjoy life a little bit more, and I think through some of the stuff you're doing with this podcast and other podcasts, all it is offering different perspectives into how other people's minds work, how their life operates. We can take ideas, we can dismiss other bits, but I think getting out and sharing this sort of stuff's amazing, and people can take what they want or leave behind what they don't want, you know what I mean?
You take those little key points. You mightn't enjoy every little bit of what someone's sharing, but be able to take those couple gems and apply that into your life. Because perspective is reality, and until your perspective changes, you may be living for the weekend potentially, or you may be going through life because that's all you know. That's all you know until it shifts. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've been in that cycle as well, where I thought I was doing what I believed was right at the time, or I thought the way I was going about the world and sinking beers, like you said, on the weekend, or whatever it may be. You believe that in the moment that is happiness, that is living, as one may say, and then your perspective changes. So what was that shift like for you in your perspective? What led to that moment? And when did you become the person that you are? I know it may be a timeline as such, but when did that shift happen? Is there any moment that you can pinpoint, or do you think it's something that just happened over time?
Do you know what? Do you know what was one of the maddest moments for me? And looking back, it was really significant. Was losing my little brother, and my little brother being on life support. So we were told my little brother was brain dead, and we could go in and talk to him. There's a machine keeping him alive, his heart rate and stuff, but he couldn't hear us or whatever. And it was before they turned the machine off, we could go in and speak to him and stuff. So heavy stuff, man, heavy stuff. The most traumatic thing I've ever experienced. And coming out and seeing my mum like wailing, seeing my mum like the most upset I've ever seen a human being in person. Seeing all my family and how they were dealing with it. But the most worrying thing for me was like realising, wow, I'm struggling to comfort these people. There's something in the way of me having a connection with my own family during such a torrid time. And not because I didn't have the capacity to, because I could do it for my friends, I could do it for a homeless man on the streets, I could sit down and chat with him for an hour and hug him and comfort him and whatever, but I found it really hard with my family. And that was a big... There's many turning points for me, but that was one of the main moments where I was like, whoa, I'm struggling to really comfort my mum through this. And so what's stopping me connecting from that other human being? And then just trying to unpack that and realising, wow, I'm going to have to take a few steps back here and really analyse things and rebuild this in a healthier way. And then that's kind of been the journey of understanding a lot of why I kind of struggled mentally and yeah, I suppose that was the main catalyst for me. A lot of come downs off drugs and alcohol, and a lot of them before it kind of got to a point where I'm like, wow, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep doubling down and bringing in different things. Like it started off as alcohol, then it kind of branched out to drugs and cocaine and pills and stuff like that. And then it just kind of accelerated. It was kind of prescription drugs midweek sometimes, and balloons, the balloon, like smashing a pack of 20 a night before bed. I'm like, and then really sitting down and just being like, wow, I'm just chasing highs. I'm trying to feel high to escape my reality. Like, and I knew I had to face my reality sooner or later, but I was just petrified of what was going to lie inside that for me.
You're just running away. What age were you when you lost your brother?
So it was 2018, so what was I? I'm going to have to work backwards here. 6 years ago, so 31, 25.
25, so you're still like in that developmental stage as a young man, playing rugby, obviously. And that was sort of the inflection point for your own personal growth. And having to experience that alongside your family and not feeling that connection or that empathy potentially does make you look inwards. But having gone through that, do you feel like it's helped you grow massively as a person? Because it sounds like it, but how did you go from that to focusing on yourself? Do you know what I mean? How do you go from that trauma to actually going, I need to work on myself? Because a lot of people go from that and they just stay on the path of pills and drugs and alcohol, and they don't ever go, I actually need to work on myself. Do you know what I mean? They just stay on that path of self-destruction, and they look back 30, 40 years down the line, and then they go, that's the reason why, that's the blame point. But they never get off that freight train, that chaotic roller coaster of self-indulgence and inflicting pain on yourself rather than actually internalizing the emotion. So how did you get off that train and actually start reflecting inwards on yourself?
I like the freight train thing, because that's what it feels like, isn't it? It is. It's like you step off. If you jump out of a car at speed, it's going to hurt and you're going to tumble for a while. It's such a great analogy. As you were saying it then, I'm like imagining myself at that moment when I was full pelt on that freight train of doubling down, even coming out and behaving in a certain way, and down to the little things of just, I wasn't being myself. I was maybe at rugby and taking banter a little bit too far, and people were coming at me with stuff and my insecurities, and I would double down. I'd get quite angry, I'd get quite spiteful, and so I'd come home and I'd have a lot of guilt. And then because fundamentally I couldn't sit with my own emotions, some of these dense emotions of shame, guilt, some of these I was doubling down. I was like, whoa, I'm feeling so guilty. I can go and apologise, but that takes a lot of courage, and I ain't got that in me. I don't want to accept that I'm doing something wrong because the shame inside me, I'm not good enough. You know, how all these emotions interact. Didn't have a clue how it was all going on. Didn't even know anything to do with emotions, and that I was in the slightest way suppressing them. And so yeah, it was more a case of that. That's when the freight train was at its fastest for me. But I know I've deviated away from your question. What was the original question?
So I was just saying, how did you go from that point of self-destruction to finding that, that actually being able to go, you know what, I need to reflect inwards?
Yeah.
So what was that journey like from self-destruction, from obviously, because you have to remember, in amongst us, you're playing like elite sport.
Yeah.
You're an elite level athlete, and you're obviously on that path of potential self-destruction, and obviously you're with training and that, you're probably walking a lot of it off as well. So you're training hard, but probably like destroying hard at the same time. Do you know what I mean? And you're on this go path. But how do you go from that to actually looking inwards?
Do you know what, man? I had a load of moments looking back which were like catalysts for me, and I had an opportunity to. I think we all have many opportunities where life gets quite bad, or life throws a load of challenges at us, where we can turn and face it, or we can carry on running, like you're saying. And I think I chose to keep running for a long period of time. But I think losing my little brother was just such a mysterious one. And I don't really talk openly about this sort of stuff, but I just had a couple of things that happened which were just like, this can't be a coincidence. It felt like there was like, it felt like my little brother was there, and he really wanted me to go into this stuff. He wanted me to unpack it all. It was the same thing he was struggling with, probably the same thing my other siblings were struggling with, and probably generationally what we struggled with for a long time. So I knew there was a lot in there. But I don't know, I started doing therapy a little bit before that, because in Gold Coast I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. So when I was out there, I was pretty rock bottom. I was injured, and there was a lot of pressure to perform at that level, man. And I had a perfectionist mindset where I couldn't perform. I couldn't even step. I was trying to run over these NRL players, man, at like 90 kilos, and it just weren't happening. Like, I didn't have my main weapon, my footwork and stuff. So I beat myself up. Anyway, depression, anxiety, and started to do a bit of therapy. And every therapist I spoke to, they was always like, "Stop there, man, stop there. I just need to tell you, you just need to love yourself a little bit more. You need to love yourself a little bit more. You're so harsh on yourself. Just that self-love, the word self-love, a lot of people, it deters a lot of people, but love myself a little bit more, just appreciate myself a little bit more. So critical on myself. And it was weird, like the last time I saw my little brother was in Norway, and we went to this like museum place, and it was where they did the Nobel Peace Prize, I think it was, Nobel Prize, whatever it's called, in Norway. And we went in there, and we was having such a laugh, like. But at the end, there was like this thing where you could write on these post-it notes and put it on the wall. And I was like, I'm not writing on one of them. What are you on about? Like, still, the ego. Like, I ain't writing on one of them.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, like, why would I get up there and write something? Why would I have something to say that the world needs to hear? My little brother was like, I'm going to write one. I was like a bit confused. Like, this is not like him. And he wrote on this post-it note. He was like, love yourself. He just put like, love yourself. And then I continued. I probably saw two different therapists after I lost my brother, like a grief therapist and then a different therapist as well. And every time, the first thing they would say to me, that it was weird. It was like a reoccurring theme of like, you need to love yourself a little bit more. And it would always take me back to that moment where my little brother wrote this thing on the wall, and I was like, why did he even write that on the wall? Like, why was that even? It was mad. And that was the first thing. And then many other things started to happen where I was like, well, this is freaking me out a bit, but I don't know, it feels like he's communicating with me in a weird way. And I just started to follow the breadcrumbs a bit, and it was leading me into my suffering, and it was leading me into, you need to face this stuff. And I wanted to help everyone else, and it was just showing me you can't help no one. You can't help no one until you understand yourself a little bit more. And you work on yourself. Yeah, so I had to start looking at me, man. I had to stop blaming everyone else for my actions and why my life was so bad. Start to own things, man, and start to really look at myself. Take that accountability. I think one of the things that I really took away from that is, how do you strike the, well, it's not even balance, but
perfectionism and loving yourself are two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
Because perfectionism, you want to do everything right. You want to be a high achiever. You want to be an elite athlete. You want to be up here all the time. And like loving yourself, it might be cliche, but you have to accept who you are in the moment. And those two things don't go, they contrast massively, don't they? They contrast massively because on one end of the spectrum, you want to be everything. And at the end of the day, in the moment, that's only what you believe it to be. Because like you are who you are. But in that moment, like that perfectionism seems so far out of your grasp. That's why you're chasing it. And you're not just happy internally with who you are. So how do you deal with that contrast? Because it's something that I need to work on personally. And I once you said that, I was like, geez, like that's something that all athletes need to work on. Like,
I think fundamentally, really, I know this comes back to it and might trigger a few people, but all you can do is do your best. Now, the perfectionism or the loving yourself is what comes after that. So the perfectionist will sit there and sabotage every little thing on the negative side, but the loving yourself and the other side of it, giving yourself a bit of grace and appreciating the good shit you're doing as well. And I think when they're out of balance, I think you fall one side or the other, don't you? And I also going a little bit deeper on it. I always go into shame, and shame's something I didn't really understand until about a year ago. But shame for me, I'd say it's the root cause of a lot of mental health suffering worldwide, and it's kind of the emotion of not feeling good enough. And I think the more we can get comfortable with that emotion, with our emotions in general, but the more we can understand shame drives perfectionism because, you know, I miss a tackle in a game and that's not my perfect performance and I've let the boys down or whatever. That induces shame, and it's how I deal with that, isn't it? It's
how you process it.
Yeah, it's either I get back out and train and work on that part of my game and just do the best I can do, and that's all I can ever do, and give myself some grace along the way of missing tackles and whatever. But man, I spent my whole career petrified of, like, as a centre. I don't know if you've ever played in the centres, bro, but
on the old Bibs team, training against.
Talk me through. Is it scary, bro? When an opposite centre gets the ball in a bit of space, what are you thinking,
mate? Listen, the old bin juice team in the centres. Trust me. No, yeah, mate. I couldn't defend on an edge. Just all jokes, you know, front rowers go out to the edge. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. Mate, there is space out there. There is some serious space, and you're going up against. You don't know if they're going to come inside, go outside you.
There's no one.
It is petrifying.
There's no one to really cover you, and like so you can play in the middle, and the middle has such a tough job in all different respects and whatever, and the engine and the brutality of it. And mate, I take my hat off to anyone playing in the middle. So don't underestimate this. But like I would sometimes get in and put a bit of footwork on, but someone would cover them. There'd be a legs tackle when someone's covered, and it's not the end of the world. You miss a tackle on the edge, man. It's a 2-on-1. It's a try. It's like,
try.
And so that mixed with perfectionism was a nightmare, man. Like I always joke about it, and he's such a good mate of mine now, and I love giving him the credibility. Like Callum Watkins, man. I used to have nightmares. The week before playing that, man. Just because I saw what he was doing to other centres, but I never had that self-belief of like, man, I'm an international player as well. Like I get it. You're an international and you're an amazing player, but I never ever give myself that grace of like, you're also an amazing player. Like, you can do the same what he's doing to you. Do you know what I mean? But I never thought like that. That wasn't my perspective. My perspective was, don't mess up. Don't let the boys down. Don't miss a tackle. I was so focused on that, the worst case scenarios, and so in that self-sabotage that it was just like an anxiety-riddled 12 years of like survival, man. It was just like I was in survival mode.
And wow. Like, wow.
Can you relate to that a little bit?
I understand what you mean. I just find like hearing you say that, it's just crazy because from my perspective, like when you look at outside in, or someone may look at outside in and go, he's killing it. Do you know he's played in grand finals, he's won grand finals. Do you know, everything looks all dandy. And you go to say your experience of it, your interpretation of it was you were just surviving, you were petrified. That's the words. When you look back on your career, do you look back with fond memories, or do you go, geez, I was just getting by? Because we spend our lives with this dream of being a rugby player. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I know I came through dreaming of it. I'd imagine, to get to this level, you had to have some passion for the game. But then you start playing it. Do you look back on your career and go, Jesus, that like I was on a roller coaster of emotions. I was stressed a bit, and did you even feel like you enjoyed it?
I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it, firstly, because, man, I don't know how I did it. And again, man, it was just driven by this. I need to prove to the world I'm good enough. And in the moments where it got tough, like pre-season, off-season, I wish I'd have gone back. I wish I would have just they always say, take 2 or 3 weeks off. Rest your body. It's so important. Rest your mind, rest your body. My mind didn't switch off. My body didn't switch off. Mate, I would be doing hills over Christmas. We'd go away as a family and I'd be out running and like, man, I was crazy. I never stopped training, but I was the fittest, but no one ever knew what that meant. Everyone just thought we did fitness and everyone thought I enjoyed it because I was at the front. I didn't enjoy it. I probably suffered the most because if I could hear someone breathing behind me, I'm like, this person can't beat me. Because if this person beats me, that kind of fuels this internal story of I'm not good enough because people are beating me. And so you can see how it drove me to the top of my game, but in such an unhealthy way.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much because I can't switch off. I can't switch off in off season. I just can't do. The off season is nearly torture for me. Do you know what I mean? Like this off season was probably one of the biggest internal battles I had to go through because like I spent half of the time stressed out about coming into pre-season. You know the
I can relate,
the anxious feeling about coming in. Am I going to be fit? And it's funny because in the off season I was talking to one of the boys and I was like, I'm going to do some broken Broncos today. And then like as we are as rugby players, he goes, what? You're not going to do a full one? And then I was like, sort of like that. Fuck you! I'm going to do a full one then, mate. So I ran the full one in the off season. Mate, I ran a 5'10" Bronco, which is atrocious for me. My head fell off. It just spiraled me more.
That'll ruin your off season.
Oh, it did. It ruined like the next 10 days. Because this is the back end of the off season, just coming in. Ruined it. I was like that. So I just trained basically 10 days on the trot, just doing like blasting myself out of it. Like that sick feeling in my stomach. In the end, I absolutely like I smoked the Bronco. It was fine. Everything was fine. The anxiety, like it wasn't there. I won it. It was fine. You know, but it's like you're in this battle with yourself, and I relate to that so much.
It's a real battle.
I relate to that so much, but to think that you're reflecting on the career and just thinking that like it was, you don't know how you did it. It's mad to think that, isn't it? It's mad to think, and you're battling with yourself the whole time. And we mentioned this just before we started, and we said a lot of us are actually fueled by something deeper inside of us, like a point to prove. And I know for a fact the reason that I got to where I am is because I had a point to prove. Do you know what I mean? I was like, you said I can't, so I will. Do you know what I mean? You said I can't, so I will. And I'm still sort of like that now. And is it a good way to be? Potentially when you're climbing the ladder up the top. Maybe it is good because you have to have something behind you to run away from and something to run towards. That's what they always say, isn't it?
Yeah.
But is it a healthy way to be? Maybe not.
I think you can still. I think you can turn it on and off. I like to think you can turn it on and off, but I'm not in that situation anymore. But I really do think you can tap into it in the moments when you're one-on-one wrestling with someone and you're giving your all. I think you can tap into that. I've got this point to prove. But I think also you can train yourself to as soon as the kind of whistle goes and training's over, I would sometimes carry that stuff over. And a bit toxically, like someone else in my position, I was always kind of looking and, in a way, sometimes hoping they would drop the ball a bit, so it would make me shine a little bit more. You know, some of that stuff I'm a bit ashamed to mention, but it was driven by kind of trauma. And if I'm not selected, what would that mean to me? Like, I was never not selected in my career, and thank God I wasn't. Like, because I don't know how I would have dealt with it. But we're not taught to kind of deal with these sort of things. But I think you can. Honestly, I think you can turn it on in them moments. But I think if you can turn it straight off, and I mean turn it off. And really have that downtime outside of rugby and learn to give yourself a bit of grace, I think it's a deadly combo, man. I don't think many people have mastered it. Yeah, but I think it takes practice.
It is. It is mastery. And I think when I transitioned from Super League into the Championship, I think that was one of the biggest battles for me, is that like I needed to find something. And that's what the last 2-3 years of my life have been. I needed to find something to drive my energy towards so that I had something away from rugby. And a lot of people I've discussed have been in the same position where they go, I need to find who I am outside of this sport, and I need to find something away from that I can put energy into. And that this has been great for me. I feel like adding value to the world is a fantastic place to be and sharing the journey. But I feel like when you're at the top in Super League, you're so consumed by what you're doing that you nearly, well, it'd be stupid to say you don't have time to look inwards at yourself, but that's who you are. That's your personality, that's everything you are. You said as well that's something that you found difficult. Who is Dan Sarginson away from rugby? And that's probably what you're still going through now. Who are you as a person when you take away the rugby player? So what's that been like?
That's life, man. That is the journey of life, of like finding out who you are underneath all this stuff, underneath, you know, the badge on your jumper, or like the badge you're wearing when you're playing on the weekend, or what job you have, or what income, what house you have. Like, who's the person underneath all that? Like, and that's the bit we don't really bring to the surface. But I think that listening to you, how old are you, bro?
I'm 24.
24, man. That's so amazing, by the way, because at 24, in my spare time, I wasn't thinking about contributing towards the world. I was thinking about contributing towards my wealth, my image, my status. And by that, I mean, I was looking to like invest my money to make me more money, or whatever that is. But to be at 24 and to set something up and to hear the money you've put into this, and your sole intention is to grow it, to offer something to the world, that's amazing. That's beautiful. That's amazing to have that perspective at this age outside of rugby. Whereas the things I was trying to build outside of rugby was trying to build my sense of self a little bit more. It was all for me. Do you know what I mean? It was me. And then when I retired, it was like, no, I want to give back. I want to share my experience. It's been so tough. But fortunately, I've had such tragic circumstances which has forced me to face this stuff, to turn and face with stuff that was chasing me. And I've learned so much through it, like through facing that stuff, through suffering we grow. Like, suffering's a natural part of life, and we try to alleviate. We're naturally we don't like to see other people suffer, so we try to alleviate their suffering. But that's the worst thing we can do for people, to hold someone through it, to hold someone else through their suffering and let them gain their own internal wisdom and understanding of life, and so they internally build their own tools and coping mechanisms so they can face the world not alone, but they gain more resilience. That's what it's all about. Like, I have this big thing with me at the moment, which is like around giving advice. Like, someone walks in here crying now, immediately, we probably both would within 5 minutes. Well, sorry if we both wouldn't, but just for this instance, like, we'd probably both try to fix her problem.
Yeah.
She's probably not come in here to have her problem fixed. She'd say, lads, can I just ask a bit of advice? She's probably coming crying because she's feeling a certain emotion, and fundamentally and primarily, she just wants to feel safe in feeling that emotion.
Yeah.
Now, once that emotion passes, she can process it all. She knows what's right and wrong. You know, she has her internal compass of what's right, what's wrong, what she's put up with, what she's not willing to accept. She can build all that. She don't need our advice from our own life experience, which has nothing to do with how she's lived her life or what she's experienced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we live in this world where we naturally try to take away other people's suffering, but suffering, we need to change, again, this perspective, this angle in which we look at suffering.
Yeah.
That it's a natural part of life, and there's so much we can learn and grow from within it.
And from spending some time in that moment, in that suffering. I think that's something that you need to realise, that probably just looping back to your experience as well, like when you're in the alcohol, you're in the drugs, you're in that escapism mode, you're trying to feel happy all the time. You're trying to chase that dopamine rush. You're trying to... Someone has put that perspective on you that you need to feel good. You should feel good. You're a pro athlete. You know what I mean? You're playing every weekend for. You should feel good. So therefore, you shouldn't spend some time in the suffering when it is absolutely okay to do so. You find yourself in that suffering, and off the back of that, when you spend that time, you actually process whatever you're going through, which is completely okay. But we spend so much time social media looking at the world as it is and going, everyone else is happy but me, which is complete Like that is the least true thing on earth. Like that is not true at all.
100%.
Everyone is going through their own stuff, but we need to, as humans, you need to slow down and actually process that.
Yeah.
And again, it's something that I am like massively working on. Do you know what I mean? I'm massively working
24, man, to even be thinking like this is amazing.
You know?
Like, yeah, man, you're doing amazing. Like, but like I keep saying, give yourself some grace, man. You're doing great.
100%.
Doing great.
100%. But yeah, spending that time in whatever you're feeling, in that time. And then on the flip side of it, when you feel good, allowing yourself to enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to enjoy that and not chasing the next thrill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the goalposts will always move. That is the life we live. The sun will rise. The goalposts will move. Yeah. But if you do enjoy something, if you do have a great moment, just to be present and enjoy that.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like, these two things in the modern world are they're paradoxes, suffering and enjoyment, and that serotonin, that dopamine. But when you do have either or, to actually be able to experience it, process it, and like be present with that, I think it's something that's massively important.
Definitely. I think it's hard, isn't it? I think when people used to use the phrase, just be present, like be present, be in the moment. It's very hard, isn't it? It's very hard. And then you go off and meditate and you cultivate these practices that try and bring you into the moment. And yeah, they work, but then you come back out and you get if you're again perfectionist, you get frustrated at yourself that like, I've just spent 2 hours with my mate and I didn't feel like I was fully present, and you start to kind of sabotage it. But you're so right in terms of, I think we have to work out fundamentally what's bringing us out of that presence. Like, and if it's an overthinking mind, then we treat that. If it's kind of this self-sabotage, if when we're having a good time, we subconsciously don't feel like we deserve that, so we sometimes sabotage that and think this is too good to be true. Yeah. Or if I really experience this joy, I'm opening myself up to a lot of vulnerability, and vulnerability in the past has been met with some sort of physical, emotional, verbal, some sort of pain. So I can't open myself up to be vulnerable, and we shut it off. And like you see when we get into our older years, it's like, I don't laugh till I cry as much as I used to. Like, do you know that belly laugh? Do you know, like, we don't have that as much anymore, and it's because we kind of harden and we shut off from this vulnerability. And as well, if we experience suffering and we're numbing that, we're numbing everything. We're not just numbing the suffering, we're numbing the joy. We have to open ourselves up to it all. Do you know what I mean?
Feel it.
It's this stuff on Brené Brown. Like, it's amazing. It's resonated with me so much around like selectively numbing. It's like, it just, do you know when you just have that light bulb moment? Like, you can't selectively numb. You can't just numb sadness and jealousy and anger and all these kind of denser emotions and expect to feel joy. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're numbing all these emotions here, and then when we're not feeling joy, we're going looking for it in substances and in materialism and in our income and our jobs. And you know, it makes sense why we're looking for pleasure in a world that's saturated with pleasure. Like, well, we can cross the road there and we can have, like, I don't know, a croissant or a brownie or something, and we'll get that little bit of pleasure. We're getting that little hit of dopamine. And I think really it's fundamentally we need to be educated around this stuff. We need to understand it, and then we have a choice. But at the moment, I don't think people really understand the choice. I don't think they understand the choices they're making, and I don't think people understand they might be suppressing their emotions, which is something I didn't know. Like, back when I was taking drugs and alcohol, I was just having a good time. And if you question that, it was like, what's the matter with you? I'm having a laugh. Like, why are you questioning what I'm doing in my life? So defensive, where it's like, we need the education to be like, you're potentially numbing your emotions. I'm not saying you are, it's the intention behind it. But for me, I was definitely numbing stuff.
Running away from something, running away from how you're feeling, and using substance to get away from that. What I wanted to touch on, you said about that presence, and for me, presence is like the hardest thing that I have to process at the minute. Being in the moment is like, it's something that I really, really need to work on. I think it's something, my brain goes here, there and everywhere. And you mentioned meditations, and it's like, you're into breathing as well and things like that. What type of practices do you do to like sort of bring yourself into that very moment, into that, like, into your mind, into your body? What practices, if any? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's I think how do you explain this? I think it's a feeling. It's a feeling of surrender that I'll remind myself if I start to feel I'm open to infinite possibilities of what might happen in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Our minds want to, for safety, our minds want to predict everything that might happen. You know, someone might walk in that door, so I'm keeping an eye on the door. And so we start to think, and then we might get carried away on that chain of thought of if they come in and we're doing this podcast, and the anxiety builds a little bit. Oh, I hope they don't come in. And we get lost in this chain of thought. But it's about awareness, isn't it? It's just about awareness of catching that thought running away and then bringing it back and going, oh, let's just feel into this kind of surrender of anything can happen. But it's a feeling. I always anchor myself back to a feeling, and it's a feeling that I felt on like an intensive meditation retreat that I bring myself back to. That's my anchor. So we did like a 3-day meditation retreat where we couldn't talk either. It was silence. We had to walk past each other and not say a word.
That's mental.
And we just meditated for like 8 hours a day. And I would once my mind, I would watch my mind and it would be chatting away and it would be tormenting me and whatever, and you can't sit here for 8 hours and whatever, and it would just go and go and go, and then it would start to slow down, and it would start to slow down to the point where it was just like this stillness that I realised existed behind all this noise that's always happening. So the noise that's always happening up here, there is a stillness that exists behind it. And then I try to anchor myself back into that feeling. I don't try and think my way out of my thoughts because I'm thinking again. Yeah. So I try to anchor myself back into like a feeling of, I don't know, letting go, surrender. And yeah, man, that's where I feel like I can access a little bit more of the present moment, if you want to call it that. But I'm not there, bro. And by the way, like, I'm not there with a lot of this stuff. I'm still working through so much of this stuff. I don't claim to have it all figured out. I don't claim I'm happy every day, man. I have rough days. I have beautiful days as well. But that's life. That's the up and down. That's once we can accept that. A lot of it's accepting a lot of these things. And we want to cling on to the old belief, don't we? But I need to think, because what if someone does actually walk in and let it go, man? Let it go. Trust. Like, tap into this deep level of trust. But that came for me through yoga, meditation, some of these practices. We can get it through a lot of things, man. I don't know. Whatever brings you that peace and stillness, follow that. Whether it's painting, drawing, chatting with a mate, whatever. Wherever you feel that stillness, do a bit more of that. Down-regulate your central nervous system. Teach your body that you're safe no matter what. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, teach your body it's safe. Yeah,
100%. And half of the battle with that is actually just being aware that your thoughts are running away from you.
Yeah,
like your thoughts are running away from you, or you are on the go the whole time. Be aware, reflect inwards, and go, like, I need to slow down a little bit here. Yeah. Which, just touching on what you just said, it's mad to think that the environment that where you spent your whole career in, like you debuted at, what age did you debut at? 17. Yeah. 17. That's where you are now. So like you said, you're not the complete product. Like you're still working on yourself, and even to have that awareness that I was here, I've come to here, I'm still growing as a person. Like, that's mad. But to even be able to come away from the environment that we've come through and that I'm still involved in, but that you've come through, and actually be able to reflect on yourself, is crazy, because we are part of the machine in some way, aren't we? Do you know, you come through a system, you get to training at this time, you know, that is who you are. So that transition into being able to go, no, like, my mind was racing away from me. I had 7,000 thoughts. I genuinely didn't think that I could sit still for 8 hours and not speak to anyone. Do you know, on a 3-day, like, that's crazy to me to hear you even, like, going through that, because I know for a fact that I'd eat myself alive and I'd start shouting. Do you know, I just could not sit still. I can't sit still I can't not speak for 10 minutes. Like, I have to make like some stupid noise or something like that. You know, I have to flick something. But that's where I'm at now, and I think that's like I don't know if that's because that's the rugby side of things, because we're always going and we're full of energy, or what that is. But the contrast of environments and like it's crazy, because you're going from a highly competitive environment in your career to now, like, you seem very at peace with yourself. And obviously it's taken a lot of growth to get there, but like, you seem like you're very at peace with yourself.
And I do a bit of I play 6-a-side football on a Monday night now. I started that after 2 years. I started something not competitive, but I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself when I first retired, that if I got into something, it wouldn't like become my life again. I was like scared to get back into something competitive, and if I'd start training for it, and if I'd start beating myself up when I ate certain things because it wasn't aligned. Although it's 6 aside, I have the capability, and that's what got me to the top of my game within rugby. I took it so seriously and beat myself up and disciplined myself to stay on this like straight and narrow. Well, I say straight and narrow, the drugs and alcohol, but I'd always be training extra hard to work it off and stuff.
And were you strict with your diet and things like that?
Mate, my diet and my lifestyle now is so much more healthier than when I was playing.
Which is crazy to say, isn't it?
Oh man, I didn't know anything about like processed foods. I didn't really take on board protein consumption and the importance of that. Like, I'd have a big protein shake at Wigan because they asked me to have one. But then I'd get home and I'd have like, I'd have like this oven cod and like this little veg bag or something. Like now I'm organic food. I'm like grass-fed red meat.
Yes.
I'm on it, man. I'm like, I have electrolytes. I have like salt, Celtic sea salt and stuff, bro. And I'm like, I'm treating my body the way it deserves to be treated. But I had to let go of, again, my ego of like, no, like nutritionists would come in and I'd be like, I know all this. Like, I've got to this level. Why do I need to? Why am I listening to this stuff? I'd rather be over here with the lads chatting and messing about. Just letting...
It's defence mechanism as well, isn't it?
Yeah, like accepting you don't know everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Accepting you don't know everything. That's something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, massively. It's easy when you're with the boys and someone comes in and you go, whatever.
Yeah,
what a waste of time this is. We'll just all have a bit, we'll sit in the back and elbow each other. You know what I mean? It's easy. Whereas if you actually go, I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Or I could be better. You have to, it's letting go of that defence. I think it's funny you say that as well about like getting into organic, because I've got there a lot as well. I used to eat, when I was coming, like when I first got to Huddersfield, I used to eat the microwave pasta bolognese. It was £1.10 from Tesco. Like obviously I'd shit money when you start. But I looked at the macros and it was like good calories and protein.
Yeah.
And I was like, whack.
Why not, man?
Whack.
And you probably get obsessed by it, and that's your go-to, isn't it?
That's my go-to. Like I was like, I was like, if it fits your macros. But then like I've grown from that. Obviously you care a bit more about your body, and you what you eat is how you feel and things like that. But yeah, I've sort of looped around.
You've got to be open to it, man. But then you got to. I think you peel it back another layer, and like I look at why was I not open to that information? It's because I didn't have the vulnerability to come forward and say, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like pretending I had everything figured out. And, like a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I have everything figured out. I'm happy. I'm this. Don't come near me. Don't give me any excess information. I'll deal with this stuff on my own. And, even if it's mental health and you just say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing here, but I'm not feeling great. Or whether it's, I've been doing this diet stuff for a while and you got to a nutritionist and say, could you help me out? Asking for help is a vulnerable action. But in the right environment, it can be a completely safe action.
Yeah.
But so then again, it's reverse engineering and creating an environment within a rugby place, within a corporate space, whatever it is, creating a safe environment for people to ask for help, for people to collaborate on things like, they don't need to compete against each other because they all fundamentally believe they're good enough. They're not trying to prove to the world they're good enough. So then they start to work more as a team. They start to ask for help, and it starts to foster more connection as well. Vulnerability is the gateway to connection. Like if I'm struggling and you're a good friend of mine and I don't ask you for help, or maybe subconsciously I don't believe that's a safe environment, and that affects how close we can get, because if I don't feel safe with certain things, then my barriers are up. I'm not letting you in. I'm not letting you in to experience who I really am, and that's where the deep connection comes in. That I believe fundamentally we're missing. I believe we're missing that
human connection.
I believe so, man.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because like we're our rugby teammates. There is probably that wall between a lot of them. Yeah. So when you look back now, are you still close with some of the people you played with, or would you say that like you had that barrier and they had that barrier and you've had to break that down? And since you've retired, have you felt more like you can break that down? Or how does that dynamic work?
There's people that come to me now that was like, when you retired, thought you was mental, like top of your game. Like the year before, I was still in the 40-man England squad. Sean Wayne selected me for that 40-man England squad. I remember just dislocating my shoulder as well, weren't in form. I was like, why am I selected in this? So I'm still at the top of my game. People thought I'd gone mad, retiring at 29. And then coming out so vocal about my mental health and stuff and my journey with that. Again, people say, do you know when you were first saying that, couldn't relate to it whatsoever, X, Y, Z. And then they'll say to me like, but I started experiencing panic attacks, or this anxiety came out of nowhere, and I started to experience this, and I get what you're saying now. And I feel like it's not everyone, but I feel like it's only a matter of time. But people like us coming out and speaking on these platforms and just sharing openly our experience will inspire just the odd person to go, I feel everything that guy's saying. Or it might be someone who works in an office and goes, I have that perfectionist mentality. I come home from my accountancy job and I beat myself up and I feel like I should be achieving more, and I don't know, all my friends are doing this on Instagram and I don't seem to be doing the same, and we self-sabotage and we suffer. And it might just be the perfectionist bit that just resonates with someone and just allows them to speak to a friend, and then they connect and whatever. Like, it's just this knock-on effect that can come from this deep openness of actually just being real and speaking about how you feel. But a lot of people don't get it. And that's one of the main battles I had to face straight away. I was like, some people would message me really triggered and like, I don't know, some of the things I used to say, like, money doesn't make you happy. I'm talking about the direct equation that I grew up with, like success equals happiness, no other factors. I grew up on that belief. Yeah. I grew up, if I'm successful, I will be happy. There are so many moving parts to happiness or to joy or to fulfillment, right? To completely blanket success as like the only way of getting there is crazy. Like, success can be brilliant, but you still need to be, I don't know, you still need to be in a relationship where you're speaking openly about your feelings and you're working out something. You need to have certain boundaries with maybe certain family members so they don't treat you in a certain way and make you, you know, there's all these things, a couple of things, your own insecurities, anxieties, worries, all this stuff has to be dealt with alongside achieving. And if we can work through them simultaneously, then I believe we'll find some form of happiness or fulfillment, or, you know, but it's not this direct equation of success equals happiness. I don't know if you got brought up on that, but I feel like social media paints that picture. Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think I was on that, what would you call it? I was on the conveyor belt. I thought, once I get an academy contract, then I'm going to be happy. Once I played Super League, and then you do it, and like, it's great, but it's the next thing. What next?
It's what next. And I also think that, like you said, social media society, we don't, like, happiness isn't the end goal, is it? Like, I don't think that, like, my goal is to be happy all the time, because it's okay to just, like, not feel this euphoric, like, you know, when you're 10 pints deep and you're on a dance floor, like, you are on top of the world, like, and it's, I'm not saying it's a great way to be, but in that moment you are on top of the world, but that's not happiness. Do you know, that's not peak living. Like, there's so much more to life, and it's okay to, like, go through periods of, like, I'm working on myself. Do you know? And I'm not happy with where I'm at right now. And that's sound.
Fine,
that's sound. Do you know what I mean? But so much where it's like you're chasing the next thing, the next thing, the next car, the next house, the next zero on the end of the bank account. Do you know what I mean? And you think, when I get that, I'm gonna be. And I've said this before on this pod. I've said, like, there's no when I get, because that's just infinite. It's enjoying the day to day. Do you know? Enjoying the moment. Like, for me, enjoying smacking a coffee with the boys is like that's like, to me, that's peak. Like, but what I've come to deal with is I want mental clarity when I do that. So everything that I do is I want to be able to sit down with you now. I want to sit down with a coffee, or sit down with the lads, or sit down wherever I am with my family, and be mentally as clear as possible. Whereas before, I was doing those things because I knew the equation. When I sit down for coffee with the lads, or when I sit down for a roast dinner on a Sunday with my mum back home in Ireland, I feel happy. But my new goal, or the goalpost moving, is I want to feel relaxed and at peace with myself while I do that. Not, I'm sitting down with my mum, I'm having a Sunday roast, she's just cooked for me, it's gorgeous, but should I be editing clips? Or should I be messaging a client? Or should I be doing con? Should I be hitting a gym session here? Do you know, I want,
so similar, man.
I want that growth to be And it still is a process, but I want that growth to be, I can actually sit in whatever I'm doing and be present in it. And then when I am in that moment of I'm grinding or I am doing a conditioning block, that still too, I'm there in it. Do you know, because it's not always pretty, and like the work isn't always fun. Or let's say you have 10 pages of notes to go through to put together a talk. It's to be able to just be in that, isn't it? Is that
100%.
Is that not, like, there's something joyous about that?
100%, man. Life's, we believe life's in these moments. Like we have an event within the day, and well, for me personally anyway, I'm not diagnosing everyone with this, but we have an event in the day that we look forward to.
Yeah.
And so then everything's based around that one moment. But life happens in and around that event.
Yeah.
Life happens, like, I don't know, when you're making a brew in the morning, there can be things that just become mundane tasks. But I think the more you dissolve this need for this intense pleasure within one experience, you can find it in loads of little experiences, and then you start to desensitize from these. I don't need to go out and drink anymore because, you know, I don't know, sitting and having a hot drink with my girlfriend, we enjoy that.
Yeah.
We enjoy that, and having a chat, like that's pleasurable for us. Once you desensitize from these massive highs, you start to find little highs in different moments, and that's where life really is, isn't it? It's in and around them big events, but it's not just a matter of like hearing this and then trying to squeeze and change your perspective to be that. I think you have to work out what's in the way of that. Like the voice you have, should I be doing con? Should I be? What's the root cause of that? Like what's causing you to feel like you need to, or what past experience has shaped you to think in that way and to self-sabotage a little bit? I'm having a great time, but I'm going to self-sabotage it a bit. This voice is noisy. Like where do you feel like it comes from?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that, and it's something that I've always, I suppose, asked myself, and I think it's that thought of I'm not good enough, or I need to be hyper successful to prove them wrong. Who even is them?
In it.
Do you know what I mean? Who's them? It's nearly something that, like, and it is again, back to perspective is reality. Like the way I perceived the world growing up in my teenage years, of I wasn't ever the peak athlete. I was never that person who was the top of the class in terms of athletic ability, or I was never that freak of nature who won all the races. So I've been like, I want to prove them. I want to show. The people told me, you told me I can't. I can. But that in a way, like, that's a backwards fuel, isn't it? Really, do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
But it is fuel in itself. It is fuel in itself. But that's the thing, is that voice in my head, it stems from something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not just there. It's not just there because if everyone had that voice, we'd all be elite athletes, and then the goalposts would move on what an elite athlete is. But I feel like those of us who.
That's a cool thought.
It's so relatable, and we pretend it's not there. All of us rugby lads pretend that we don't have that voice. Sometimes I call it the black dog. Do you know what I mean? The black dog's there on your shoulder. But you know, we have that voice, and we either pretend it's not there, or we don't talk about it between us. But a lot of the lads are running away from something, or running away from an experience that made them go, I'm gonna kick on and drive myself to go that one step further. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so arguably what you're saying is something I believe in, that a lot of it's driven by shame, which is this emotion of not feeling good enough. I am not good enough. But then once you understand the emotion of shame and understand that it can only exist, its actual existence is born upon the kind of secrecy. It exists within the secrecy. Yeah. So because I feel too shameful to speak about something, that fuels shame. Yeah. And when you start to speak about things with a lot of vulnerability, you find safety, and you start to speak about these things with vulnerability. Like, lads, I've always struggled with this rugby thing. I've got this voice in my head, and other people start to open up, and you feel like you're not the only one. Yeah. You start to realise, I am good enough. He's good enough as well, and he's actually good enough, and we've all got this voice in our head, and it starts to dissolve shame. Shame can't exist once you speak it into existence. Yeah. So, but there's a prerequisite to that: a safe environment. You know, someone who validates your emotions, and people don't just shut you down and go, "Oh, come on, what are you on about?" Like, you know, you're going mad, or whatever, or however people invalidate your emotions. But finding that environment, especially between men, sitting down and talking about open, vulnerable topics within men and dissolving that shame, I think once you can quieten down that noise of shame, then you can start to really understand, wow, I don't need to beat myself up as much. But I recommend everyone to go read up on the emotion of shame. I'm like maybe it's just a phase in my life. I might do more research and whatever and come back and go against what I'm saying now, but I feel like shame's at the root cause. That emotion is at the root cause of a lot of mental health and suffering and personal self-sabotage, everything, man. Yeah.
And have you dove into that yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. Yeah, I think it can show itself in a lot of ways as well. I used to have this thing about being embarrassed, but it stemmed from being a kid. I don't know, like kids would tease me. I'd go red quite a lot, yeah. And there was a lot of shame in that for me, because when someone's kind of laughing at you for something, maybe an insecurity, and you're just a young kid, you kind of build this idea that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, and you don't process it.
That's shame, isn't it? I'm not good enough. So every time it would happen, it's a big rush of shame, and I'd go into my shell and just think, it's just safer not to talk to anyone. Yeah. Kind of develop this social anxiety where I didn't want to bump into anyone in case it happened. Yeah. Because I was torturing myself about it over and over. Not only was I exhausted, but I was just flat. I just couldn't connect with people. It was safer not to be vulnerable and engage in social interaction. So I kind of become I was like a real really shy kid. And then during secondary school, we'd be like reading in English, and we used to like popcorn. So you ring a sentence, and you go popcorn, someone else, and then they'd have to read a sentence, in English class, and people would do it to me just to make me go red, and would like laugh a bit, and I remember all that, and it really hurt as a kid, and I just had my barrier up. I was like pretending it didn't hurt me or whatever, but this was kind of the last thing I would dissolve around shame, and it was like, I would never, ever speak to anyone about it. And then I spoke to my partner about it one day. She was like, I barely ever notice. And when it happens, I don't think any less of you. I was like, really? I was like, So I'd kind of lived my whole life with this really intense shame, just around this one behaviour, just this one thing that happened to me, this insecurity, that I was like, whoa, I can start talking about this. And the more I talk about it, the less I care. I realise it's just a part of me, and then there's that deep acceptance that comes after shame. There's things we're shameful of, the way we look, our body, our nose, our face, or whatever. And then once you talk about it and you realise other people are in the same boat, and it just chips away at shame to the point where you're like, I don't care. I don't really care. And then there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of freedom in that. And obviously, you could just diagnose me with social anxiety. But if you want to get to the root cause, you have to understand the emotion, and you have to understand where the emotion was born into existence, which was at school and being teased. And
that shaped you.
Yeah, and go back and feel that stuff and understand the origin of it and realise, well, I'm not messed up. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with me. There's just an experience that has created an intense emotion. I can't feel my emotions. I suppress them with alcohol and drugs. I'm running from it. But as soon as I can turn and face this emotion and speak openly and vulnerably, I can work through this stuff. And then confidence grows. Then you no longer got your anxiety, so you got more energy. Then you can
weight lifted off your shoulders. Then, isn't it?
It's just this positive cycle, man. So that's just one example. That's just one example I could share. There's many examples around that sort of stuff that we'll all experience. Maybe not as people might view that as silly. I don't care, but people will have their own little insecurities where I look at it and I go, I never noticed that about you. And people are like, oh yeah, well, I'm a bit thingy, and I try and hide it. But no,
Nobody notices but you.
Yeah.
At times.
Can you relate to that?
Yeah. At times, nobody notices that but you. I always, I can't remember where I heard it. Someone always said, don't point out when there's something up. Say you spill down your top, and then you don't meet someone. You don't meet up with someone and go, oh, geez, I'm on my way here and I spilled down my top. Nobody probably noticed that you spilled down your top.
Yeah, you bring attention to it.
Till you brought attention to it. Do you know what I mean? So things like that. Like you said, you spoke with your partner, and I never really thought that much into you. But for you, it was such a big thing that it shaped you for so long, and been there for so long, and then you start speaking it, and it just sort of probably, like you said, dissolved. You let it go. And I think it's mad that you say that shame is the driver of performance at times, especially for sport, because it's I remember in school everyone used to say you're skinny, you have a skinny pack. Oh, that was the worst thing for me.
What, skinny pack, your middles or
no
you individually?
No, me individually.
Oh, really? Right.
I had a six pack because I was skinny. Oh. Not because I was jacked.
Yeah,
you know
because you were training hard. Complete dismissal. That.
Yeah. You have a skinny pack. So in my head, I was like, I'll show them. I'm not skinny. I'm not. When you say that to like a 14-year-old, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Skeletor. I remember dishing Skeletors about, like, because I was jealous I didn't have the abs.
Yeah.
I think with kids, I said this to some. Sorry if I've interrupted you.
No, don't be worried.
But I really think it's important with kids. A lot of parents are like, how bullying, and so some of the talks I give, I can't control a bully, but what we can do is educate our children around how people project how they feel onto us.
Yeah.
Not to then highlight it to every time and go, you're only calling me skinny because you haven't got abs. But fundamentally understanding people who are insecure about certain things will project their insecurities onto someone else. They got two options. They can either deal with it themselves and process it and understand why they feel that way about themselves, or they can understand why they feel the need to bring someone else down about something. And I think educating children around how we project how we feel onto other people if we're not dealing with it. So a bully, then you look at a bully and you see him saying all these horrible things to people, and then you look at the actual fragility behind a bully and how insecure they actually are.
Yeah.
It can help that kid to dissolve that story that they're not good enough and they're not quite right, or they don't look a certain way, and understand that guy is just projecting his own problems onto you. Don't worry, you keep doing you, and that's obviously it's not a cure to bullying, but it can really help kids find a bit of peace within someone being extremely horrible to them. We can't control what happens when our kids go to school, or, you know, I'm saying kids, this can happen up into, I don't know, rugby environments, work environment, whatever. Like, I think a bit of education around that side of things is important, isn't it? And understanding, like, you like with your abs, other people were just jealous of that.
Yeah.
You might not have understood that at the time.
At the time, no. At the time,
What did you think at the time? You just thought,
at the time, it was just show them. Yeah. But that's what. That's
eating the calories.
Yeah, that's it. I'll show you. Yeah. That's what it was at the time, and it was a great fuel. Don't get me wrong, it was a great fuel. But was it a good way to be, like, to then be looking in the mirror and always feeling like, oh, you're scrawny?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And would you have days where you felt like? So did you try to put on weight from that day on?
I was always on a mission. I was always on a mission then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, you're too small, you can't play pro. You're too small, you're too skinny. Do you know what I mean? And then it was on a mission. It was obsession. Do you know what I mean?
And what was the voice in the mirror? Was the voice? Fuck, you're doing amazing, bro. You look fucking jacked today. Or jacked. I've never said that word in my life. I must have said that earlier. You're looking massive today, like your hard work's paying off, and give yourself a pat on the back? Or was it, you're going backwards, you're looking skinny, you're like, get back in the gym tomorrow. 6 a.m, set your alarm. Which one was it? Like,
it was always the second. It was always the latter.
Always.
It always is the latter. It's the latter. It's, I need to be more, do more, I need to prove it.
Always.
Do you know what I mean? That was what I was on. From there, I was on that mission. And then obviously, it's like adding scoops to ice cream. Yeah. Too small to play with. Skinny pack, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And your ice cream's your ice cream's this tall then, and you're carrying this around like this, do you know what I mean? And like, you're carrying it around, and it's playing on your mind.
Yeah.
It's playing on your mind. And it was the driver. And like, because of my journey into like a professional environment, like when I came over to Huddersfield six and a half years ago, I didn't come through a system or anything. People were telling me, you can't do it. You're done. Like, just go to university. Like, there's no rugby career here in Ireland.
Who were these people?
Everybody.
Wow.
Everybody, because I wasn't in a system, but I would not let that dream go, and they would just stack more scoops on for me. More scoops of that weight, of what would you call it, weight of all those emotions of people saying that I can't do it, and that was my fuel.
Doubting you, man, like doubting you, and then you kind of maybe building that self-doubt and going, I want to prove them wrong, but are they right? Everyone's saying this, so maybe I am small enough. Maybe I can't make it. Maybe I can't do what I want to do within life.
Yeah,
and again, like, why are these people doing that? Like, again, fundamentally understanding why is someone telling you can't do something? Like, I'm sure they're not strategically trying to fuel you.
No.
They're just trying to stop you from maybe achieving something they maybe never did. Like, it's their own problem, like, forced onto you, isn't it?
Exactly,
in some ways.
Exactly. And like, it's that tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? Like, when cutting someone down when someone has a mad idea or a bit of ambition.
Is it? Is that what it's called? Is it an actual thing?
Yeah, wow. It's called tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? They say it a lot about. They say it all the time about, like, Australia. It's tall poppy syndrome. They cut people down. Do you know? But I feel like it's the same in the UK, in Ireland. Like, it's like people want. I want to see them doing well. but not too well.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's probably the same with yourself. Like, you go put yourself out there, and like that sort of journey us into the stage of your career where you're at now, and you're giving talks and you're being very vulnerable with yourself, and you're being open. You're open to coming on this. Like, me and you never met until this moment. Do you know what I mean? You were to me, like, say a year ago, you were the bloke. You were killing it in the Super League. Do you know what I mean? You retired. I didn't know much about you. Obviously, I dove into you a little bit about you prior to this, but not too much. And now, like, I have a different perspective on you. You'd never met me before, but it's like, people want to cut you down. Do you know? So how's that been, to bring it all around full circle? How was that transition into your new side of your career? And how was it the first time you did it? The first time you put yourself out there? Do you know? Because
scary.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Would you get it with this?
Well, yeah, with this. But even before that, like this time, yesterday, 1 year ago, I made my first proper YouTube video, and I put myself on, like, I vlogged. I did a vlog in Mallorca, and it's funny because we went to Mallorca in March 2023, and December is when I put the vlog out. So I had all this footage.
You're battling it.
I had all this footage, and like, part of me was saying I was too busy to film it, or I didn't know how to edit properly. But I think part of me was also like, there probably was that fear element of, I'm going to make a YouTube video. Do you know what I mean?
And who do I think I am?
Who do I think I am? Imposter syndrome.
Oh, man.
So we're diving into something there. But like, what was that like for you when you started giving talks, started putting yourself out there?
Scary, man. Of course, it's scary because there's a voice in your head that wants you to play it safe.
Yeah.
Because playing it small in life is safe, but you never grow.
Yeah.
But like,
nothing grows in the comfort zone.
Yeah, you know, like what's that saying? It's quite a cool saying where they say, like, a ship's not meant to be anchored up in the harbour. That's where it's safest.
Yeah.
It's obviously not safer to be in a storm at sea, but that's where you explore, that's where you learn, that's where you grow, and that's where we're meant to be. We're meant to be out of our comfort zone, and unfortunately, me, you, everyone, naturally, we listen to that voice inside our head, trying to perceive and predict what other people will be saying about us. And, you know, you start to quieten down that voice. And again, it comes full circle to that love and appreciation for yourself, that self-love. Love yourself a bit more, give yourself a bit more grace. Like, no, I'm going to do this because my intention is this. I really enjoy doing it, and that is all I'm factoring into this equation. If I start factoring in, there might be 10 people who will tear it down and go, what the hell is he doing? Like, fine. But if you start to factor that in, you'll never do it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's about quietening that down and mate, getting out your comfort zone, putting like a YouTube thing up. I remember my first, even just putting my first like Instagram post up of just talking into the camera. All the voices like, who do you think you are? Why do people feel like they need to hear this? And then even grip into like the positive feedback. That's another part of it. Like, you can't grip onto anything because you grip onto the positive feedback. You're opening yourself up to the negative ones. If you're going to ride the highs of the positive feedback, be prepared to ride the lows of the negative feedback.
Yeah.
Like, sit in the middle. Amazing. Thank you for acknowledging my podcast. I'm not gonna completely ride that wave and think I've completely made it, because equally when someone slags it off, I'm not gonna also ride that wave. I'm gonna sit in the middle where I know my truth, and the truth is I love doing this, and I know I'm bringing value to certain people's lives. And
That's key.
And then you stay courageous in that, man. You just keep your foot down and just keep. I'm talking to myself here, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
I need to be putting more stuff out on social media, and I fall into the excuse of time, and got the 9-month-old little boy now. And but I'm like, no, I need to pick this sort of stuff up. We were saying earlier, like, you build trust with people. That's how you build trust. Like, no one gets to see me on a day-to-day basis to build trust. So social media can be used as a good tool to build that trust. Like, here's my perspective on life, and keep offering that. And if someone aligns with that over time, you might build that trust to collaborate or work together or whatever that might be. But that's built over time, isn't it? You had that statistic.
Yeah.
What was that? How many hours? I remember you saying.
Yeah, 9 hours. 9 hours. Yeah, 9 hours.
6 hours. No,
6 hours. 6 hours. 6 hours. Yeah, 6
It's a
hours.
lot of time, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, when you're saying like a minute post, like 6 hours to fully build that trust with someone.
Build that trust.
You need to be consistent and putting stuff out there, and it's not for everyone. You have to accept it's not for everyone. This podcast you're sending out isn't for everyone.
Absolutely not.
It's not for 8 billion people.
No way.
It's probably for a large amount of people. Once they access this and realise your true intention and who you are over time, they build that familiarity, and then you become they subscribe to you, and then they watch you a bit more because they build that trust in you. Like when you first start off, it might be, I don't know, 10 views.
Yeah, 10. But if you touch those 10 people and you create a change of perspective, or something goes in their mind, goes, I really took one or two things away from this hour of me and you chatting, and they go into their life and they just move through the world slightly differently. That makes it worthwhile for yourself and myself.
100%.
Yourself and myself, then that's a success to me. If one or two people have that little movement, that little 0.1%,
Definitely,
you know, and that's savage. When you retired and then you go to put your first reel up, how long did it take between that, and then what inspired? Like, obviously we've discussed the whole journey, but what made you actually hit the button and go, I'm going to do it?
Well, first of all, when I retired, I had 9 months of doing nothing, and I'm very grateful to be able to have done that. But I didn't want to slip into another. I didn't want to go into a job for the sake of it and realising I was in a job I wasn't passionate about. I didn't know what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
So I had to, and again, I had the voice in my head, you're not earning a penny, what are you doing this another month? Or going out for coffees and sometimes pulling back on buying a croissant because I'm like, oh, you're doing this every day and it's adding up, you've got no money coming in, you know, battling myself, not having that trust in the long-term plan that, like, no, this 9 months of stillness will allow me to understand myself a little bit more. Yeah, financially I'm going to go backwards, but who cares? That's what I've saved money throughout my career for. And then really trusting that, and that was something I really struggled with, was that trust that, like, no, if I keep going backwards financially, that eventually it will turn and it will start to. So I had 9 months off, and I just started thinking, do you know what? I'm just going to write my story out. I'm just going to
savage.
I just thought I'm just going to write my story out, and I'm going to write it out as brutally honest as I can. And then I wrote it out, and it was all over the place. And I was like, right, how can I compartmentalize this to create themes and create kind of a journey that I can take people on, where I had the highs of, like, Australia and NRL, but I was depressed. So why? Because I'm creating a contrast. It's like I had all this, but I was feeling this. So, and everyone's shocked. Everyone's like, well, hang on, why? Because I thought if I would have had all this, and I'm like, because I wasn't processing my emotions, because I wasn't dealing with my internal world. I was building my external world. I was building the material stuff, the house, the car, where I was living, how much money I was on, who I was playing for. Yeah, I was building the physical world up without ever nurturing my internal emotional world, and hoping that would cover it all up. So I start with that within my talk. I'm like, great, that will get them gripped, and then I'll go into, well, why was I feeling rubbish? And then I wrote a section on why I felt rubbish, all my problems. Filtered it out, because there's probably hundreds. Put kind of like the kind of 3 or 4 most influential into what was affecting my mental health, and then share it just as openly as I can, man. And that's the feedback I usually get. It's from the heart. I don't read off a script. I just stand up there and I just talk about how I felt. And it's real and it's honest and it's vulnerable.
But it's true.
Yeah, and that's what connects with people. I think when someone gets up and talks, I can tell if it's the truth. I can tell if it's coming from their heart, or I can tell if they're up there just trying to make money and just trying to ride a wave of whatever it is, mental health, resilience, whatever they're talking about. I can tell if they're just trying to ride a wave of this buzzword, and I can tell if someone's talking from their heart. And I know that I've left talks where people are so honest, so vulnerable, speaking just from the heart, letting it flow, pouring it out with no filter. I just, we've all got that internal compass that kind of knows the truth.
You can sense it. You can sense it. Like I know if I was sat next to you and you were just holding back, or you know what I mean. You do know that. I think that's a deep human emotion and a sense. You can numb it, but you can't make it go away. That idea that you go, is he really telling the truth there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
What's his barrier up here? You see it all the time. You see it all the time within our teams, within work environments, whatever it is. Like, they're open, but they're not really. Yeah. They're not really. They're holding something back from me. Do you know what I mean? And which is fine too.
Yeah.
Because that's each individual, and they're going through their own journey. Do you know what I mean? But like, I know that there's some teammates that you can play with for years, just to go back to like a rugby environment, and you never really know them.
100%.
Do you know, like, you've shared the field with them for years on years, and you feel like you know nothing more about them from the day that you walked through the door and said, hello, my name's Ronan, my name's Dan, to the day you left that club, or the day they retired, the day you went your separate ways. You know nothing more about them. They've just been like that very external relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, mate, yeah. I remember remember loads and loads of players like that, and I don't think anyone truly knew me until I probably signed for Salford.
Was that the truest version of you?
It was
At the time?
Yeah.
Compared to Wigan or the NRL?
Yeah, 100%, man. That was me with like half my armour off.
Yeah.
So people were starting to get a glimpse of who I was and what I was doing. I was finding the courage to be myself a little bit more and talk about things that meant a lot to me. And naturally in that environment, it was alien, so it was very controversial. And so it took a little bit more courage to kind of stand my ground on it, and there was less backing from other people. I don't know, like I don't really know an example, and probably won't go into any examples, but sometimes I was fighting perspective, let's just say, about talking. Let's say if I went in and said, listen lads, not as abruptly as this, but let's say I started to speak about my emotions a bit more.
Yeah.
And, listen lads, I was so upset yesterday, crying my eyes out, and XYZ happened, and this is my family. Someone might turn around and go, it's a bit deep, mate. And this is just an example off the top of my head, but I started to get into the groove of the old me would go, oh yeah, it's a bit much, innit? Why am I putting this on other people? And I'd be like, I'd start to stand up for things and be like, no, lads, this is the root of all connection. Like, not speaking about when you're sad and when you're crying, but speaking about our emotions. Like, our emotions are at the centre of our human experience.
Yeah.
So if you want to know me without all the feelings attached to it, you don't know me. You just know the story that sits on top. But you don't know the feelings and emotions and experiences that drive who I am.
Yeah.
So you don't have a full understanding of me. So you'll probably misinterpret the way I come across or when I do certain things, because we've all got flaws. And so we'll never truly build that connection. And so, yeah, we'll be a team when we go out there and the whistle goes and we've got each other's back, and it's, you know, it's like going to war. It's like going to war, man, isn't it? It's the adrenaline and everything. So definitely build that respect there. But I think sport has a long way, team sport has a long way to go in terms of creating that safe environment, creating an environment where you can build deeper connections interpersonally and deeper understanding of each other and why people are the way they are. Not to then accept their behaviours when they're out of line, but just to have a little bit more empathy in how you go about it and deal with them people. You know, hold a safe space for them to maybe work through and process a little bit of it. You know, I don't know yourself, like, when you're stressed, when you're very anxious, when you've got a lot going on in your life, you're probably more prone to injuries. Your performance isn't as good. You're naturally not recovering as much because you've got a lot of emotional and mental stress. Like, I'm a massive believer that the body doesn't know the difference between physical, emotional, and mental stress. Stress is stress.
Stress to the body, yeah.
Stress is stress on a cellular level. You've got billions of cells. Scientists have probably proved me wrong on this, but this is how I see it, man. I'm like, if you're emotionally stressed, and you're mentally stressed, your cells don't know any different. They're not recovering the way they should be. You're not optimal. Like, people, it's like a hard sell, selling like a well-being talk to a sports team, and I'm like, you get people working on their emotional state, you're going to see the best of these players. You're actually going to see people get out of their anxious, worrying minds into this flow state, and like, that's undefendable. Like, the kind of where this sort of thing can get to is the next. I think it's the next revolution within sport, within business, within everything. This emotional intelligence,
unlocking the athlete from within.
I think so, bro. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think you can be one of the cogs in that.
Well, yeah. I mean, anyone, man. Like, anyone. I'm not delivering this concept to say, you know, I need to be delivering this.
Yeah, but
there's other people out there who understand this, but you fundamentally, man, you can't read this, you can't really read it in books. You have to feel it, you have to understand it, you have to go through your own journey of understanding and processing and feeling it deeply to be able to deliver it passionately. Like when I go up and talk, and even when we're on this podcast, I don't think about what I'm talking. I'm just sharing how I feel in that moment. It just flows.
It's authentic.
You know,
I can feel it, man. I'm getting like, I'm feeling it now. You know? Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm feeling it now. Like, that's how you're getting me going, even just thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think it's going to just level up the game. Yeah. But I think the game's come a long way since I've been involved. Yeah. It's come a long way.
Definitely.
People care about it's getting there, how people are dealing with emotion. Yeah. People care about recovery. Players are getting more professional with their diets and that. And like,
yeah, they are, man.
You know,
I see environments improving.
The environments are improving, but it's still a long way to go.
Definitely. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's still a lot of growth, and that's one of the things that needs work and needs improving.
I suppose it takes. the same way me and you, we're all similar really. The team and us, like, I always felt like I needed to physically be doing more. So when I was sat there, I didn't see the point in an hour of stillness. I'd rather be in the gym for an hour.
Yeah.
If I didn't go to the gym, I'd beat myself up.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can't see the veins bulging or whatever. Yeah. Because if I meditate, I don't see veins bulging in my brain. I don't see the progress. But I think teams see the same as well. I think teams in pre-season, I think they invest so much in the physical side of it, the fitness, the strength, the wrestle. Yeah, I think it's important, but I think you can definitely carve out an hour, half an hour each day and prioritise some of this stuff and just invest time and it will cost maybe financially to get someone in to do this sort of thing, but I think it's where Wigan. I don't think them winning 4 trophies is any coincidence. I know I speak with Matty Peake quite a lot, and Matty's on a journey of understanding himself a little bit more, and trying to become a bit more vulnerable and trying to create that environment of that internal safety and. The environment for when I was there to what I hear now. I went to their shirt presentation the night before the grand final. Matty invited me along kindly, and it was so amazing to see some of the old faces. And like I've lost 3 stone, people couldn't notice me. People were like, who's this? But it was amazing to see the environment, man. It was amazing to see the environment change. Fundamentally the same people, but just the kind of journey they'd all kind of been on in a way.
What was the biggest difference for you?
One little thing, like, bro, everyone come up and shook my hand and said hello and was like, and made an effort to talk to me. There was no like, I was like, just taken back. I was like, how cool is that? Like, how respectful is that? But I don't know, I just think, I don't know, I think it was just quite, when we were there, man, it was quite brutal. It was, there was a lot of just like tormenting each other and a lot of banter that probably was going a bit too far and stuff. Like we were a team, of course we were a team because we won things, but and we were connected and Sean Wayne was amazing, great coach. But we were miles off in terms of like emotionally supporting each other. And I don't want people to think straight away that's we all need to cry in front of each other and whatever. But I don't know, just letting each other in and letting each other beneath the arm and to understand ourselves a bit more, building a deeper connection. That's what I felt like they had a bit more, just that team connection, man. And
it doesn't happen by accident, does it? You don't win everything by accident. You need I always say the teams that win, they're like a group of best mates. So like you look at Penrith, you look at Wigan now, they're winning because they look connected. Now listen, I don't know much about the environment. You were probably in there with the short prezzo, but like that connection is what makes you go the extra yard. Because if I know a little bit more about you and you've opened up to me today, I go, yeah, shit, I care about him that little bit more. So when my lungs are on fire, my legs are blown, I still want to turn up. I want to turn up for you because I know about what you're like as a person. I know about your family and your kid and things like that. You want to do that little bit more because the person means more to you than just someone that you turn up with. You train with a lot in the day, you take the piss out of and you go home and never care. Never one thought crosses your mind about what they're up to, how they're getting on.
It's invaluable. It's invaluable. Like, look at parenting. Like, you can discipline a child and you can keep disciplining them, but if you've got them at a stage where you're talking about respect, you're talking about I've opened up, I've been vulnerable and I've been respectful towards you, you're talking about a deep level of respect. Where you would then do a lot for me and I would do a lot for you out of respect of each other because we understand a bit of each other's journeys, we understand we've got that deeper connection, so it's built upon respect. So coaches can choose to be authoritative and like a dictatorship and my way or the highway and they can go mental and coach through that and coach through fear, so you're all playing out of fear of not wanting to lose, or you can be playing in the moment just full of respect for each other and watch where your performance goes with that. Like, you can still perform to the best of your ability for a coach because you respect them enough and you know they would do anything for you emotionally, physically. Like Wigan for me, when I lost my little brother, Radlinski and I think Wayne was there, they picked me up from the airport. Like, I was out in Norway saying goodbye to my little brother and they picked me up from the airport at like 12, 1, 2 in the morning, whatever it was. Got back, they'd organised for George Williams to stay at my flat. George didn't want me spending the night alone. Like, some of them things I have so much.
It's invaluable.
I have so much respect that in the moments when it's the 79th minute and my lungs are burning, of course I'll do something for. Of course that, like, I don't consciously think of that, but that's all built up within me where I'll go the extra yard. Like, you know, it's through that respect.
It's invaluable. It's invaluable, those little things. And I feel like you said, the coaches that you play for most are the ones that are the best managers.
Yeah.
Do you know, they look after the person. They're the coaches that you turn up for. The ones that scream and shout and ping clipboards off sheds, like, they might get you going and you might get a win.
Yeah.
You might get 10 wins.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you think, what's going on with him? Like, what's really going on with him? Do you know what I mean? You look at me.
I know. And I don't know. I just think there can be the illusion with it is sometimes it can breed short-term success, but it only takes a few seasons before people go, I'm fucking sick of this. Yeah. Like, I can't be talked to in this way anymore, and then they start to lose that respect, and then the fear doesn't play a part anymore, because it's like you can demand me to play through fear and try and get me up for these games, but I don't respect you that much now. It's got to this threshold where I ain't even turning up, or when I'm injured, I'm going to have an extra 2 weeks out to make sure I'm right. Yeah. Because I'm not putting the team before me now.
Exactly.
Like you start to get people branch off into little selfish self-protection.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, yeah.
You know that. You sense that sometimes.
You see, you can feel it. You feel it when a player wants to play and they come back from injury. They're doing anything to come back. But when the coach has lost them, they're not trying. Players, you see it all the time with the sideline. They're not rushing to get back because they're like, I don't respect you as a person. Definitely. Whereas when you respect someone who's at the top of the organisation so much, you do anything, and you respect your teammates, you do anything for them. Whereas if you have a bad culture, bad environment, you're like that. Yeah. You know, and they don't even, it doesn't mean the player who's potentially sidelined is a bad person. No. It's just, they don't even know they're potentially doing it. No. But it's just an emotional barrier, isn't it?
100%, man. 100%. And so, like, to take it over to a different code, and I don't watch much football, so it's interesting, this has come to mind, but like Pep, I don't know even if they're still on a losing streak, but it seems like they'll be fine. Whereas if it's a fear-based coaching mentality and they get a lot of success, it covers up all the problems. Yeah. There's no one's turning on each other because you're winning. Yeah. But it's when teams start to lose a lot, you see people turn on each other, and these frustrations that are built over years start to come out, and then you see this like rebellious kind of in people out in speaking behind backs and all this sort of stuff branches out. If it's a fear-based, but if it's through respect, it's not, because you'll know it's a safe environment to go to the coach and speak about certain things, and it's safe, and you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel like you have a valuable opinion in that, right? That's a respectful, that's a non-hierarchical kind of coaching mentality, which I feel like is the way forward. So it'll be interesting, and I truly believe from what I've seen in interviews and stuff, like, the players fully respect Pep Guardiola. Yeah. And so although they've lost a lot at the moment, and there's a lot of self-doubt that comes with that, but I think there's a lot of burnout as well. They've won so much, bro, they've won for so long. Like, you can't keep that up. You can't keep flipping heads, heads and tails. You can't keep flipping heads, man. You have to there's a run of tails coming. Yeah. And it's how they'll bounce back from that. And I just think it's so interesting. I'm so excited. I don't follow football at all, but I am really intrigued and excited to see how they bounce back, because I feel like their relationship is completely built upon trust and respect. So I feel like they'll weather it. They'll come out the other side. They might lose a couple more, but they'll come out the other side of it. They won't have to sack their coach. Like, these coaches that coach there for long periods of time, they do it through respect. It's got longevity in it. This fear-based stuff, eventually it falls apart.
It dissolves, doesn't it? It dissolves that fear-based stuff. Yeah. Mate, can't keep flipping heads, can you? Can't keep flipping heads. What does the future look like for Dan Sarginson?
The future?
What's the vision?
I don't know. I'm... what am I doing? There's a bit more corporate stuff coming up where I'm kind of going in and working with leadership teams within corporate stuff. So that's really interesting and cool, and takes me out of my comfort zone a little bit. Like, the public speaking stuff was scary at first, and now it's just something I can really enjoy.
Does it just flow now?
Yeah, and I can get into it, and I really enjoy that stuff. I think I'll always do that stuff. Hopefully, if other stuff takes off, I can get in and offer these talks for free. Like, I don't know. There, of course, there's an energy exchange up there. I'm getting up there. I've put a lot of time into the talk, and it's my experience and it's who I am. But especially for schools, when schools say they haven't got budget for it or anything, I want to offer that. I want to be able to offer that for schools. I think every kid, I want every kid to be able to hear my journey, my story. So that's definitely something I'll look at the future. I'm trying to build other little things, just some online programs and stuff. I know when I go in and deliver a talk, a lot of these kids, I get messages like, wow, that was amazing. You made me think about stuff in a different way. Then they kind of go back into their lives, and you know what it's like. You're exposed to a new perspective, and if that plant's not watered, it just dies, and you kind of lose it. It stays somewhere, the seed's planted, but it doesn't get any growth. It doesn't get continually seen to. So I want to create something where I can't be there every week for these kids. I can't, and it doesn't need to be me. But I'm going to try and create something online where, I don't know, just Inform Time or PSHE. There's a video of me talking about something about my life and get them talking and get them connecting, but on a consistent basis and building it up. So there's little things like that I want to run. There's little projects like that I'm working on at the moment. But fundamentally, man, it's all built around sharing my experience, and I'm still learning so much more about myself. Like I'm actually doing a bit of therapy at the moment to try and unpack some other stuff a lot more deeper, and just the stuff I'm learning off the back of that is just like, whoa, I feel like rewriting my whole talk or creating like a version 2 or something. So the ideas are just flowing to me the more I understand myself. And I thought I had it all cracked about a year ago, but then life throws more challenges at you, and
goalposts move.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, man. It's just the way it is. But you just got to learn to enjoy the process, I suppose. And yeah, man. What about you? Where are you looking to take the podcast stuff? Is it sky's the limit?
Sky's the limit. I just want to say there's so much value in what you could give to the schools, to corporate, mate. That is so exciting. And yeah, I think this podcast, I just want to keep getting people like yourself on, sharing your perspective. Mate, the last, what we are now, an hour and a half from me has been like eye-opening. Eye-opening. It's been insane. I think that if I can keep getting quality guests on like yourself and just keep growing with it, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah, man. Honestly, coming back to that point earlier, like 24 and wanting to give back and having so much self-understanding of yourself at that age is mad. And you've still got a career in rugby ahead of you, which is amazing. Like part of my journey is like I walked away from rugby because I wanted to. I don't encourage everyone to walk away from rugby. I encourage people to, as I said, work on themselves alongside success. But if you're in there doing that, in that environment, you're just having a knock-on effect on all these other amazing people within the sport. And I don't know, I think internally you can make such a difference within the teams you're at. And I think it increases your value as well. I think this emotional intelligence, I'm going back into, but like with the rise of like artificial intelligence and virtual reality and that, it's important more than ever. This is something these robots may never comprehend. Like this will be their Achilles heels. They might eventually take all of our jobs, and I don't know. There might be 2 robots sat here speaking on our behalf.
It's not real. It's not human, is it?
Yeah, they can't tap into the emotional. I don't know, man. They'll never get into. They'll never develop a soul. Like we're talking deep. We're talking.
There's no empathy in robots and AI, is there?
You know, like they can learn how to react, but they can't feel what's going on. And that's where I feel like, because the world's going that way, I feel like it's super important for us all to just invest in this. They call it emotional intelligence, but whatever. Understand yourself a little bit more, how you operate.
Human connection.
Yeah, and then understand off the back of that, all that stuff comes. That's the end goal, isn't it? We all just want to feel connected, part of a community. We all just want to feel loved and accepted, and we want to feel good enough, whether we're training or whether we're sat just having mum with dinner, dinner with mum in Ireland, man, and then sat there watching the telly. We don't like, the more we can quieten that for. We just want peace, man. We just want to find that inner peace, don't we?
We do. Dan Sarginson, that was a serious message. Thank you, my man.
No worries, brother.